are watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by Scott Weiser. I've worked as either a character animator or director on more than 30 projects, both short and feature length, and my favorite projects have been my short film, Layers, and these books, Vanishing Ink and Cirque du Solitude, that I wrote, illustrated, and pitched at several studio films. I actually have an update on that journey. I wrote on Tuesday the words "The End" for the rough draft of my next project. That will be a book and a feature film pitch. So, wahoo for that. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about my wonderful guests that I have here. I have Jasmine Katatikarn and Mike Tenzillo. They are both lighting experts in the area of CG animation, and that's one of my favorite zones. We'll get to talk about that in a bit. Also, Mike and Jasmine have started this online school, the Academy of Animated Art, which they teach both lighting and animation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right now, our main focus, because we're lighters and we started the school, we do have a robust lighting curricula. We're in the process of developing the animation side of things. As of right now, we have a mentorship program with Becky Tower, who's I was scrub her job title. She's like the head of the animation, and she's working one-on-one with. Yeah, our main courses are in lighting.
Okay, great, wonderful. Awesome, and they're a really great tie-in because I actually attended an online school, and the production I want to do is actually going to be production, hopefully. So we get to talk about that and the pitfalls of that, how to navigate that space. Yeah, so that'll be wonderful. So the first question I had for you, Mike and Jasmine, is what drew you to the Directing Animation Livecast?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for us is a few years ago, Jasmine and I wrote a lighting book and called Lighting for Animation, that as well.
Good title.
Yeah, and when we were pitching the book, we really were interested in getting a diverse range of images. So what we did was we were reaching out to people who directed and created animated shorts, people who were just in the industry and passionate and interested. And what we found when we reached out to people is just how inspirational they were, how amazing they were, how open to share everything that they were. And so through that process, Jasmine and I have just kind of maintained that idea that we always want to be reaching out to people in the industry who are doing cool things and talking to them. And we discovered your podcast and seen a couple of the YouTube episodes, and we reached out to you because we were excited to. Clearly, you're passionate about this, and we just wanted to talk with you and connect with you.
Yeah.
Behind this, what goes?
Sorry, Jasmine, you cut out a bit there, and I can't really hear what you're saying.
I was just gonna say it's just really great to behind the scenes what really and how love that you share that.
I'm sorry, you cut out, like half of that was cut out. So it sounded like you said you really like to see what goes on behind the scenes. And I think you gave me a compliment, which would have been lovely to hear.
I gave you so many compliments. Yeah. You didn't hear it. But this is basically like the insider view of what really goes on
behind the scenes.
Cut out again?
You did.
I gave you another compliment.
Like his looks are so dashing and all that. Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. It's wonderful to have you. So welcome.
Thank you.
So the first question I would like to talk about is I'm a huge fan of lighting, and when I would animate different things in the different studios, I would often check almost daily my shots to see if they'd been lit yet. I just love the magic of see your shot with no lighting, everything looks kind of bland, and then suddenly you see this other artist who comes and adds all this atmosphere and lighting and texture to your shot, and it's just a wonderful, exciting thing. So I'm excited to get to ask you about it. So let's pretend like I came from 2D animation. I don't even know what lighting for animation is. Could you give me the basic rundown of what is involved in that and what I need to know as a director? Giving you.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So lighting for a CG animated film, basically, like you mentioned, when we inherit the shot, we have a shot that's already been animated, already been a set built. There's already, usually, depending on the studio, been material supplied, fur simulated, and cloth simulated, but it's very gray, it's very even. And what we do is we work with an art director who has a vision for the shot, a mood, a certain something with the story that they're looking to. So they'll say something like, they'll generally have paintings of reference of looks that they would like to achieve in the shot. And then it's our job to take that vision, take the existing scene, and then add lights to the shot to help achieve. When I say add lights, we do it in a 3D software package. So the way I always tell people to imagine a stage play. And the actors are already there, the props are already built, everything's set up, and it's our job to add lights to the production. Do three things mostly. One, like I said, emphasize the mood. Number two is direct the viewer's eye so that they know which character to look at. If the character has something in their hand, they know to focus in on that. And then number three is even though we're 3D animation, we're still a flat medium, it's still a projected image or something that appears on the screen. And what we want to do is convey the 3D space. So one of the things that we really want to do is create visual shaping. So lots of light to dark areas, lots of fall off, add visual interest. And those are really the three main things we're looking at. Emphasizing the mood, directing the viewer.
Yeah. Great. I heard everything except for that. And I think I actually have a noise gate on you, so I'm really going to adjust this really quick.
Okay.
I think what it's doing is you don't have a lot of background noise. Okay, I don't think we'll lose you anymore. Hopefully.
You want me to repeat anything?
What?
You want me to repeat that last bit?
No, just summarize the last three things really quickly.
Yeah. So the three things that you focus on as a CG lighting artist are enhancing the mood of the story, because we're all storytellers in the animation industry, so we're all doing our part to enhance the story.
Yeah.
Step two is we're directing the viewer's eye to the most important elements within the image using color, light, contrast. And then number three is we're crafting and sculpting visual shaping into the shot just to add some visual dynamics to it and make the image more beautiful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And actually, that's how background design works as well in 2D animation. So it's interesting that now our language has converged a lot. Where when we were first moving into CG, it was a little bit confusing. I don't think that somebody would have a difficult transition from maybe 2D to. Thank you for. Great.
Because at the end of the day, we're just artists creating beautiful images, and the foundation of what makes a beautiful image, whether you're doing it in painting or photography or film, is all kind of the same visual language. And so we're just doing our part to make pretty images.
Yeah, great. And I'm also fascinated with how light works. I actually became the creative director of a company where they had never done live action production before, and they wanted all these Kickstarter videos made. So I had to go and kind of relearn in a way, because I'd only worked in animation. I had to learn all about production, and there's a lot of lighting that goes. Very fascinating. So I think that's another reason it excites me, because it's kind of like alchemy, especially because you take that image that an art director painted, kind of what's in their imagination, and then you go and you use it with electronic tools. So what are some things that you wish directors understood about the lighting process when giving notes?
That's a good question. I guess the thing is, it all depends on the director, because some directors are very much attuned with light. Others, maybe they're not that familiar with it. So I guess what I'd like to see, let's say the people that maybe aren't that familiar with lighting is, and eventually they do learn as they go through the process, but how lighting, just like any part of the pipeline, is the focus is the same thing. Everyone's trying to tell the story, right? It's all about how do we best tell the story, and through animation you tell the story, and through lighting it complements it in telling the story. For example, if an animator animated something, but the lighter puts it in the dark, then what's the point of that, right?
Yeah.
So we have to complement each other, and that same thing that goes with lighting. It's like this invisible type of storytelling where you not only are we maybe directing where the viewer's eye goes, but we're like showing the viewer what kind of mood it is through the light, through the color. Is it a sad scene? Is it a happy scene? And it's all these things that people don't realize are happening in their mind, but it's all being crafted through lighting. So I think that is an important aspect of lighting that people probably don't realize, that it's a complement to, it's very important to telling the story, just as important as animation or any other part of the pipeline. And it's just like an invisible thing that you probably didn't realize, but then when you realize it, you're like, oh, it makes a very big difference.
Yeah. I really liked how you talked about it as invisible story. There are other aspects of what?
One of the things that we say, it's very similar to like the score of a film. Like you don't necessarily notice that it's there, but if it's ever missing or off, you're very aware of it. So we like to be, like an unsung hero pulling at the heartstrings of the viewers as they're watching it.
Yeah. When people around my office know that I talk about the invisible story structure that we put into stories, and how if it's not there, people notice, but it's kind of difficult to see it. And so they're used to hearing that. But when I mentioned that I was going to have lighters on their show, like, what is that? It's kind of a mystery thing. So I think that in some ways lighting is actually a visible thing in the process. That's another reason I'm excited to get to talk to you, talk to you about your school and all. I also, question that I had for you. Oh yeah, so as an animator, I would get notes sometimes that just, they hurt. To get those kinds of notes. What do those notes look like for you as lighters?
Oh, they all hurt.
Just bring on the pain. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I know when you present, in rounds and date, like we our shots for daily reviews. That's how we move forward and we get critiques. You have to learn not to be too sensitive about the comments. But I mean, honestly, the ones that hurt the most are the ones I already know, because like sometimes you put something up and you know it's like a work in progress, and you like see it, and you like, for me personally, I like cringe. I was like, oh, like they have to see, they're gonna see it because they need to see the work in progress, but you could do better. Those are the comments like if I see, the shaping is not there, maybe this character's falling flat, and to hear it, that just, because it's like, oh, I know I could do better. But then that's great too, because it's like getting feedback and pushes you even further. Like I think the worst feedback is showing your shot and being like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what?
How am I going to grow?
I know. That's me.
I like that point about the shots, the notes you already know, though, because I think that helps you too, because in the back of your mind there are things you kind of sense, but you're like, I don't know if that's really applicable. And then when you show it and somebody confirms that, you're like, yeah, I knew that in the back of your mind, and it trains you as an artist as well to catch those notes yourself as you.
Exactly. And I will say, so those are the most painful notes, but the best notes are the ones that you don't see, right? The ones that they will like say, that could be adjusted, or that shadow is too dark or something. And then you're like, oh, they're right. Like, and all of a sudden, like, that's where I feel like the growth really happens. Things that you don't see too. It's like, oh, and the suggestion makes so much sense once you say it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. That's the best note to get, is one that inspires you. I always talk about additive notes versus subtractive ones. Subtractive ones is like, this is too bright, take this down. This is too reduce. Yeah. Additive notes that I really like are like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, so this character's sitting on the back of this bird and the bird's wings are flapping. Wouldn't it be cool if like the bounce light underneath them, like kind of animated with the flapping of the wings? Because the wings opening up would actually block more light coming up from under. You're like, yeah, that would be cool. And then you kind of do it, and it makes the shot more dynamic. Those are my favorites. The ones that get me are, so when we review shots, lots of times we'll just look at the shot looped over and over and over and over. I'm sure you guys get this in animation too.
Yes.
And lots of times, so if you pay attention to films, I mean, you guys know this, that a shot could be 7 frames long. It could be a quarter of a second long, and it goes by like that. And as the lighting artist, you're like, okay, we just really need the audience to focus on this one thing. So and it's like zooming past, you make it extra bright because once it gets motion blurred, it'll be, but then it's like, But then you show it and it's so painful because they'll look at a non-motion blurred version of it and they'll just like step through
Frame
it
by
frame by frame. And you're like, okay, so on this frame, you need to do like, I remember Jasmine.
It's a 10 frame. I had a 10.
You had a 10 frame shot, yeah. It was like years. I forget. I even forget. It was one of the Rio movies, or I forget which film we were working on. And Jasmine had this quick shot, and I remember she was like animating the position of the key light around it. So it was just like, and it was like a 10.
It was like a 10 frame shot. I was animating,
and
I was like, what am I doing?
And then you go to the big premiere, and you get dressed up, and then you go in the theater, and that shot just like zooms right past, and you're like, this week of agonizing over it, just like tweaking it, doing this, like nobody. It's just like a big blurry mess.
Oh, it made all the difference.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it did. Well, and as a director, I've learned from producers that I need to think a lot about budget, and I think one of those things is like, is it worth this lighting just, spending a whole week on this shot that people aren't even, they'll just only kind of feel? That's an important question. But yeah, that's awesome. So as educators, you have all these students coming through your pipeline. Are there things that you wish that they could get? Are there things that you wish that they could understand? Or
The one for me is that working in the industry, we don't have special tools, right? Like that was a big misconception I had when I was in school, is that like, oh, the stuff that you have in Maya or whatever 3D software package is like, okay, that's great, but like, look at these beautiful images they're making at, the major studios. I'm sure they have all these crazy tools once you get there. And then at the time I got here at Blue Sky, and the tools were actually, because it was proprietary, it was actually a step back from a lot of the stuff that we had.
Interesting.
So, but you learn quickly that it's not about the tool. It's about the craft. It's about the artistry of it. It's about being able to create a beautiful image. So we always make the example of, like, if you're a painter, you might think like, oh man, if I just could save up some money and buy this amazing paintbrush, then I can make the beautiful image. And you realize that it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. No one cares what paintbrush you use. They care if you have the eye to make a beautiful image. So that's something I really wish, not so much the students, but I learned that faster.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what the students like. One of the first questions students ask us is software. What software should we use?
Oh, that's the same with animation. What software do you use?
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
first question.
They're so obsessed with the software and the tools, and they're missing the whole point. The whole focus is not the software, it's about learning the craft, and that's what's going to be further. So I think that's what we hope, and we are instilling in it, that it's not the software. They teach you how to become regardless.
And that's actually the main inspiration of why we started the school in the first place, because I know that Jasmine and I both didn't receive that level of education before we got into the industry. So we really had to learn it on the job.
Yeah.
And like only after a few years of being in this industry did we look back and go, wow, there were some holes that we really, really wish that we had. And then just through talking and going out to lunch occasionally, we would we came up with this idea, like, why not us? Like, why couldn't we be the ones that teach people this thing?
Yeah.
And so that's what birthed the Academy of Animated Art, was just this idea that we would love to fill in the gaps that traditional education didn't provide for us. We'd love to be the class that we wish we had when we were going through school.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm always recommending online schools to people. There's never been one for lighting that I've known of. So now I know about yours, so I will be recommending your school to students who are interested in that. And how is the competition in lighting in the industry? I know there are tons of animators. I often tell people that rigging is a really great way to get into the industry, because those people are a little bit rarer, because they like that technology and the art kind of meshed all together, but they're a little bit more heavy on the technology. How is it for lighting?
I'd say lighting's definitely less competitive than animation.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about lighting, which
Right,
we probably they don't even know it's this kind of this specialty. Everyone knows an animator, right? It's like, oh, you're being. I mean, we still get like, what do you do? And then you have to go through the whole thing. So there's definitely less competition, I would say, than animation. There is competition, though.
It is. So I know I can speak from my personal standpoint that, like, this is a really cool job, right? Like, we get to craft images that are in animated films that get released around the world, and it's and we make a good living doing it and all that stuff. And it's a great job. So I think once you're in it, like it does get a little because like I've been here for over 11 years. You've been in the same company for 10 years. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really great job.
Yeah, but that being said, it's also very specific. Like, if you're good, if you're honestly, I feel like if you have a good eye and you're a good lighter, you won't want for work.
Yeah.
When I was especially when I was freelancing in New York City, I was like, I couldn't stop the phones because there was such a need. Like, there were so many modelers out there and animators, but I kept hearing from studios, no one had good lighters.
Mhm.
So I feel like if it's something that you good at and you have that, lighting is definitely a good longevity career, I would say. But that being said, and I will mention that the mindset for an animator is very different than a mindset for a lighter. For instance, when I was in grad school, I knew instantly I was not meant to be an animator. I would like breeze through the animation part of it, like rigging animation, and I'd be like, oh, it's kind of moving. And then I'd spend like all my time on the visual, the look of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I was just like, I always knew I was meant to be here. But then the opposite is many people. And you have a good analogy of like when you know you might be a lighting person or an animator.
Yeah. So if you're watching a film or you're watching an animated scene, and you focus in on the performance, the character performance, you're probably meant to be an animator. If you're more focused on the beauty of the image, the lighting, the set design, like all that stuff, you're probably meant to be a lighter. Because that was one thing. Yeah, I never paid attention to character performance when I was coming up. I was like, man, just look how beautiful those images are.
Yeah, and I'm the same way.
And what if you focus on both?
Well, then you can do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, then you're just making your own films on your own, and you're killing it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I actually kind of had a sense that I wanted to be a director from the beginning, but I was very quashed on that. People would say, "Oh no, people will frown on you if you say that," and all that. But luckily, I've gotten more courageous over time. So, but yeah, that was really wonderful listening to you and your about students and all of that. So, thank you for that. And so something I thought of as you were talking is you said that there aren't any extra tools that people have in the studios. And one thing I thought of was the color script. I think you're still right about that. I don't think it's really an extra tool because you still have to develop your eye. But it's fascinating what those color scripts do for you, like those key lighting shots or when they do a key painting. It seems like they give you a lot of ideas that you just wouldn't have on your own. And on my 2D film layers, I worked with lighting artist who did, I guess she's a visual development artist. I think she fits in that box better, but she did a few key paintings and then I filled everything out with a color script. And that was completely worth doing because there's so many things that I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah. And for us, I mean, we're everybody, whether you're a lighter, an animator, whomever, you're here to deliver on the director's vision for the project, for the film. So the color scripts are incredibly beneficial as a communication tool for the director because they can. There are lots of times that we don't have them, and the director will come and just be like, "Oh, we just need this to feel romantic." You're like, "Cool." And and then you're always able to get there, but it speeds up the process because it eliminates the miscommunications. That's another one that gets me too is when there is a color key, but there's been a change along the way that wasn't communicated to you. Like I remember, like I was given a shot and this painting of this beautiful night scene, and I spent like 2 weeks putting it together. And I showed the art director. And he was like, "Oh no, this is daytime now." That's like all he said.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Okay, next shot," and I was just like crushed. I was like, "No!" Again, that was the time of change because of the story changed. And I was like, "No."
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, well, let's talk about your experience with a remote online school. My experience with that is I started out as doing my bachelor's, and then I went into the online school, and I just felt like I lost so much. But over time, it seems like the different schools, because there's more competition out there now, especially for animation. It started out with Animation Mentor for me, and then Anim School and I Animate came along. And and Anim School even has a rigging program above that, and then now you have a lighting school. So what do you think are the biggest things you've been able to do to overcome that hurdle?
Versus like the in person.
Yeah, in person versus the online remote type of.
Yeah, good.
Well, one, I think online is so powerful because, especially now with everyone's busy schedules and mainly location, right?
Mhm.
Now, no one's confined to like, oh, I just don't live in the right place, or I can't dedicate, full time to going to school. So I think what it does, it opens it up to so
Yeah,
many people and makes it available and on their own time too.
right.
So no longer are you hindered if you have to work full time, because a lot of people do, or you have other commitments, and it gives you. So I actually think, honestly, there's little downside to it compared to. I will say traditional. I guess in the plus side, you're in a lab with the instructor, right? But for us, we've offset that with kind of it's an online community that is only open to our students, and they have the ability, they have access to us even more. Instead of once a week,
Yeah,
they have access to
Mhm.
us 24/7
yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
and they can keep on. If they have a technical question, they can just right ask us anytime. If they do work, they post it to the community and they get feedback within 24 hours
Mhm.
instead of having to wait like a week or something in a traditional school. So I actually think it allows students to actually to choose their own pace, to excel, grow even faster if they want to. Like they could keep on getting feedback multiple times a week instead of just that one isolated time. And it opens it up to anyone,
Mhm.
really. So now anyone in the world can
Yeah.
learn what
Yeah.
from a professional
Well, that's
and
one of
not.
the reasons I'd like to do an online production, because a lot of times people have really expensive. Cost of
Mhm.
living is a problem. Maybe the congestion is a problem. Maybe people just want to be out in the open or maybe traveling. And the way technology is shifting, it seems like all you need is an online connection sometimes, and you could work on a feature level film. Now, I think that where you run into problems is NDAs and all of
Mm.
that. And
Right.
we've been thinking of solutions of how to navigate that. But is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mike?
Oh, I just want to reiterate the accessibility to people was something. So, I mean, we didn't have this all figured out when we first started because we were debating like, should we do live classes? Should we do pre-recorded lectures? And what we discovered when we started getting out there and talking to people was the number of students that we have in Eastern Europe, in Asia, but I forget the number. We're up to like over 40 countries where our students
Yeah,
are
yeah,
from. And so we decided that we wanted to do pre-recorded lectures so that they can watch them on their own times. We're not isolating anybody out, and it's really created this community of unique viewpoints that you wouldn't get if you were in New York or Los Angeles or Vancouver or something, where it's like everybody living in one place. It's like we have all of these unique vantage points on the world and coming to it from these different areas. It's been really really inspirational for us to see that in our community.
yeah. I think that's I usually do the get wiser moment at the end.
Yeah.
But so the get wiser moment, I used to ask the question, what moral responsibility does a filmmaker have to the world culture? And I usually get an answer that the intersecting point would be truth. We need to tell the truth as filmmakers and storytellers. And so my question is kind of modulating. If my goal is to get the highest clarity of truth into it, what approach would you recommend? And it sounds to me that having those variety of inputs is actually one of the tools.
I
Yeah.
I would say to get to truth and to get to the best work possible, I think you need somebody that you can rely on for honest critique and feedback of you going through the process. And I can say that as Jasmine, as my business partner, working through this. If I come up with an idea for a model for a student to light or something, Jasmine will definitely tell me when my ideas are bad. And and I know that all the educators that and all the filmmakers that I've thrived under are people that are honest with me about my work. And so we try to bring that energy to our students, is that we will be honest and forthright in our critiques of them. We don't hold back because they're students. We bring a studio level critique to their work. And so because I know through experience that when you do that, and at the end, if you say it's good, then they know it's good. Where if they're just like, oh yeah, if everything that gets posted, like, oh, that's great. So to get to truth, I think you need somebody that you can rely on to provide you with the honest feedback when you're going astray.
Yeah. And it's nice with a community like yours that you've built with your students. They get multiple viewpoints, and they can start to learn how to listen and kind of sift through it. Because sometimes you get a viewpoint that's not qualified, right? But if you start to hear something multiple times and you're like, oh, I think there might be some truth there. There might be something that I need to work on there, or whatnot. So yeah, that's a really good viewpoint. On that subject, now it looks like for some reason we have a timer ticking down here. So
It's not that too. I was just like, ooh.
hopefully that we'll get you back on if something happens, and just edit that part out. But I would like to know, what is a film that you've seen from each of you that has made a big impact on your life, like caused you to think a lot about life and make life changes, and because it had a high level of truth.
Are you looking for an animated film? Or
It could be animated. It could be. I prefer classic, but it could be whatever you want. The question's open.
That's a hard one. You should have given us that question ahead.
So I've got so
It's an experiment. You don't have to answer it if you don't want.
I'll give you one of each. From an animated standpoint, Finding Nemo is the film that changed everything for me.
Cool.
And not so much the film, but I looked at the behind the scenes of it and saw these artists going scuba diving off the coast of Australia, and they talked about how they use that reference to craft the different looks of the movie, and how those different looks, depending on where the characters were in the ocean, whether they were closer to Sydney or more in the open water, depending on how close they got to Sydney versus how far away, and they were using that reference to drive the mood of the film. And I was just blown away by that. At the time, I had finished my undergrad. I was an art major with a focus in photography. I was a little bit lost. I was just bartending and working random jobs to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I thought, oh, this is what I want to do in my life. And so that was a real game changer for me. The other, like a classic film that a classic film that I always love is Rear Window. My all-time possibly favorite film.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of telling a story from one vantage point, and I'm always drawn to films that are. I want to use the word just smaller, that live inside kind of one room for most of it. Like I really love 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, I was going to mention 12 Angry Men.
Yes, like all these films that just kind of live in one space at one time. I think it's so cool, and I think it allows you to dive really deep into the story. And as a storyteller,
it was just story at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to say as a computer graphics artist, like someone who's done, like who could work on visual effects. And I want to say that, like, Lord of the Rings is my favorite. No, but it's like it's just a strong story is something that I, as a fan of film,
the last time I saw 12 Angry Men, it was like, wow, I just went and saw some big budget film, I'm sure, recently. And this one moved me more. And they didn't they didn't go to all those fantastical locations with all the cool design. And, and yet I was taken on a bigger journey emotionally, especially the moment where they're like talking about how the knife goes in, right? And you're just like, there's tension between them. They're like, don't do it. It's just so brilliant in the storytelling. Yeah.
Right. And like the heat of the, like you just like, you could, like, watching it, I felt like I was hotter because like all the characters are always like hiding their heads and turning fan-ons. It was like a hot summer day in New York.
Yeah.
And living in New York as we do, I can't imagine being in a building without air conditioning. I would also try and stab somebody.
Or at least think about it.
It would cross my mind for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. What's yours, Jasmine?
So mine, I thought about it. I think mine would be Amelie.
Oh, yeah. And that has great lighting in it.
So for two reasons. I think it actually fulfills both of those. Because when that came out, it was right when I was graduating undergrad college. And I actually majored in economics.
Okay.
And so I was going to these like finance, banking, And when Amelie came out, one visually, I just remember like the vibrant colors, and it just looks so unique of like visually as a film compared to anything else that was going on.
Yeah.
And it was whimsical. It just made me happy. It made me smile. And the message too that I got from it is just kind of like going outside your comfort zone, going out, if you just like kind of take a chance and it's never too late. Because at that point, I thought I was so old, right? I was graduating from college. I was like 21. I was like, it's too late. I'll just get a job as a banker or in finance because that's stable. I was always taught as a kid that like I can never go into the arts because like living a life of suffering, to be dramatic about it. And after seeing that, like both, I realized like I just wanted to pursue a full career because it was so inspiring. And two, I need to take a chance and go outside of my comfort zone
Yeah.
and go for what I really want. And that's when that year is when I basically said, I am not going to be going to finance. I am going to go to the creative art fields. And that's when I just started taking my classes on my own, and I kind of stumbled onto 3D animation. It was never even like in my view before then, before I was 21, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah,
So
I'm so glad you did.
yeah,
Not look back. I'm so glad you did decide to
yeah.
animation.
So that's why I would choose Amelie for those.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the colors too, because they have such a limited color palette, right? They really
They
are
do,
very
yeah.
picky and choosy with what color they emphasize in each shot.
Yeah, but it's designed that way,
I
and
know.
it's so inspiring, and it's like it caught my eye.
That's one of the things about working in films is you realize how much attention is paid to color. Um, like we just worked on a film called Spies in Disguise
Yeah.
that came out around Christmas, and one of the things with that is we assigned certain colors for the film to certain characters. So like anytime there was a bunch of red, it was like this one villain was in the shot. Anytime there was a bunch of like this kind of cyan blue, that's when all the spies were around. Um, and the story that I've always told, and I tell it to our students, is the film "The Emperor's New Groove."
Mhm.
There's the potion in the film is like this pink potion, and I talked to an artist who worked on that film, and he talked about how when that potion was introduced, there was a conscious effort by the artist to pull warm tones out of the preceding shots leading up to that moment, so that it was just like the shots got bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer until boom, like they pulled this pink potion out, and then it really like allowed it to jump out to the audience. Um, and you can see it in films like Amelie, you can see it in all kinds of films, like how much attention and dedication goes toward the color
Oh yeah.
script, the color palette of the film. It's one of the things that I enjoy most about what we do.
Me too. Color is one of my favorite things. One of the things that I think I excel at, but I also love it. I love talking about it and the theory behind it. Brilliant, wonderful. We had Robert Kondo on, who loves color. Learning about color and like from them is Van Dice. So
Because there's never like a ceiling to what you can learn about it. I learn
I know.
every day, all the
Yeah.
time. It's so exciting.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So for our last question, I usually ask the question like, what can we do to make the industry a better place? I actually wonder if a better version of the question would be, what would make this industry a better place for artists to work?
Do you have anything?
Pardon me.
I would say there's if I'm being completely honest, there's a lot of jobs out there that are um, temporary
Mhm.
temporary
Yeah.
jobs. There's a lot of like 6-month gigs, 9-month gigs,
Hmm.
and I know that I have a lot of friends who have families who want to just settle down somewhere, and it's not always there's not always an abundance of opportunities to get a stable job in this industry where you can
Right.
really set up roots somewhere. And also, there's not always, especially for feature film, there's not always companies in the place of the world that you want to live, right? Like
Right.
where your
Yeah.
family is or where
Yeah.
you're looking to be. So I would say more stable job opportunities in more locations.
Yeah. I really like that. And I went through that myself. I moved all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And just about the time where I was ready to get a studio job that I could stay in for a while, I decided to start my own thing. But it took a while. It was like a long process. It was hard for me and my wife to think, what's the future of our children? Like, how's this going to be? And all that stuff. So yeah, that's a really great point. I really like that. So where would you like people to connect to you as we wrap up here?
They can find us at academyofanimatedart.com.
And that's academyofanimatedart.com.
Yes.
academyofanimatedart.com. They can find us there. They can get resources, assets, and reach out to us directly.
I know there's like a free book on the website that you can get about breaking into the industry.
Yeah, there's a free ebook that goes through our secrets. So for those that are listening that may not know, one of the biggest part of applying for a job is your demo reel. It's the number one thing that, because experience helps, but the number one thing is they want to see the work that you've done. It's usually like a 2 to 3 minute clip of your best work. And that's the first thing they review before anything else. So we provide our insiders secrets as to what makes a good lighting demo reel in our ebook. And it's just based on our experience, based on countless review sessions of us sitting in those rooms and seeing what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. So you can find that on our website, academyofanimatedart.com.
Yeah, and in addition, another great asset that we provide are assets, actual already modeled, material shaded assets ready to go for you to light. And we do lighting challenges every month too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so the reason why you probably don't find a lot of lighting courses online is that lighting is near the end of the pipeline, and so you have to have something to light.
Right.
For animators, I'm not saying it's easy to find a rigged character, but it's a little easier. And what we did is we set out to create the library again that we would want when we were learning lighting. This asset library just full of different scenes and characters that are already textured, so you can download them and immediately start lighting and immediately get going. So because it kind of simulates what you would get in the studio as close as we can.
Mm-hmm.
All right, wonderful. I'm glad I asked that question. It's really inspiring, and I'll be recommending your school for sure to people. So you can follow me at scottweiser.com/follow. That's my mailing list. And all these links will be down in the show notes as well if you're coming back to this show. And tune in next time to see the director of Brave and Prince of Egypt, Brenda Chapman. And until next time, enjoy. You have been watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by Scott Weiser, produced by Lauren Chaikin, audio version edited by Kiara Horowitz, copyright Scott Weiser LLC 2019.